Right now, the average boat owner uses their boat about 12 to 14 days a year. That's it. Out of 365 days, the boat sits tied to a dock or shrink-wrapped in a yard for roughly 350 of them. The CEO of a major boat-sharing platform put it perfectly. There isn't really an asset, she said, that's more expensive and less utilized. And here's the number that makes this insane. That boat, the one doing nothing 350 days a year, lost 20 to 30% of its value the moment it left the dealer's lot. People are paying full price for an asset, then using less than 4% of it. And thousands of them have figured out the fix, and it isn't buying a boat at all. That's the reason. It's shocking. This isn't a story about boats getting worse. It's a story about people finally doing the math on something they should have done decades ago. For most of boating history, there was really one path. You wanted to go boating, you bought a boat. Maybe you financed it, maybe you paid cash, but either way, the boat was yours, sitting in your slip, waiting for you. That was the whole deal. Boat clubs existed, sure, but they were a niche thing, a local arrangement, nothing that showed up on an industry chart. Then look at what's actually happened to the largest one. Freedom Boat Club started back in 1989 in Sarasota, Florida, as a single local operation. By 2000, it started franchising. In 2019, Brunswick Corporation, the company behind Mercury engines and Boston Whaler, bought it outright, at which point it had around 20,000 memberships. Since then, the growth has been staggering. The club went from around 170 locations to more than 400 across North America, Europe, and Australia, and by 2024, it had surpassed 100,000 members. Look at just one franchise as an example of how that happened. A single Southeast Florida territory, established back in 2014, grew so successfully over its first decade that Freedom bought it back outright in 2024 just to bring that growth in-house. And in 2025, Freedom Boat Club logged more than 640,000 member boating trips worldwide, a new record, and over 5% growth from the year before, making it the third year in a row above 600,000 trips. 18 of its individual locations each delivered more than 10,000 trips in a single year. That's not a niche anymore, that's a real chunk of the boating population. So why now? Why is this exploding at exactly this moment? Because two things just collided, and most owners are stuck in the wreckage. The first is the real cost of ownership, the number nobody puts on the brochure. Industry experts call it the 10% rule. Expect to spend roughly 10% of your boat's value every single year just on maintenance, before insurance, before storage, before fuel. So a boat that cost you $150,000 is quietly draining $15,000 a year just standing still. Add a marina slip, which can run anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 a year depending on where you are, insurance on top of that, and the loan payment if you financed it, and you are easily looking at $20,000 to $30,000 a year, every year, for an asset you touch 2 weeks out of 52. Now here's the second thing, and this is where it gets shocking. That same boat is losing value the entire time you are paying for it. New boats lose 10 to 30% of their value in year one alone, depending on whose numbers you look at, and keep bleeding 5 to 10% a year after that. By year 5, a lot of boats have given up around half of what they cost. So run the full 5-year picture. One company that specializes in boat club memberships put traditional ownership over 5 years at somewhere between $136,000 and $147,000 in total cost. And that is before counting your own time spent on maintenance and prep, which they estimate at another $3,000 to $5,000 a year on its own. And at the end of all of that, you are holding a boat worth 50 to 60% of what you paid, that you now have to find a buyer for. You paid to own it, you paid to maintain it, you paid to store it, you paid in your own weekends, and at the end you pay again in lost value just to walk away. Compare that to a club membership, and the picture flips completely. You pay one membership fee, often with a smaller upfront amount and then a monthly or annual rate. There is no maintenance bill, because the club's mechanics handle that. There is no insurance bill in your name, no slip fee, no winterizing, no calling around for a haul out, no shrink wrap in the fall. And when you want to go out, you do not take the same boat every time. Most clubs give members access to an entire fleet, different sizes, different styles, a pontoon for the family one weekend, a center console for fishing the next, maybe an electric boat for a quiet evening cruise. The boat you would buy is a compromise, one boat trying to do everything for one family's whole range of trips. The boat club membership gives you the right tool for whatever you are actually doing that day, and someone else is the one who has to find a buyer for last year's model. And remember that 12 to 14 days a year number from the start? That's not a knock on boaters, that's just being honest about life. Work, weather, kids' schedules, the fact that most people's free time clusters around the same handful of summer weekends everyone else wants too. A boat sitting in a slip the other 350 days isn't a personal failure. It's just what owning a boat actually looks like for almost everyone. A club membership is built around that reality instead of pretending it doesn't exist. You're not paying for an asset that sits there, you're paying for the days you actually use. If this is making you rethink how your own boat gets used, do me a favor and hit subscribe, because I dig into the money side of boating every single week, the stuff the dealers never bring up. There's a bigger story sitting underneath all of this too. The boating industry just went through one of the wildest boom and bust cycles in its history. During the pandemic, demand for boats exploded. 2021 alone saw close to $57 billion in industry sales, one of the best years in 2 decades. People who had never owned a boat in their life bought one because it was outdoor, it was distanced, and it felt like freedom. Then interest rates climbed, the economy normalized, and a huge wave of those pandemic-era boats hit the used market at the same time. By 2024, used boat sales were down double digits from their highs, and the market shifted from a seller's paradise to a buyer's market almost overnight. A lot of those pandemic buyers are exactly the people discovering the 12 to 14 day problem right now. They bought the dream, used it a handful of times, and are now staring at a depreciating asset, a loan payment, and a slip fee in a market where selling it for what they owe is suddenly much harder than it was 3 years ago. And the scale here is enormous. There are something like 11 million registered boats in the United States right now, and even in a slower year, close to 900,000 used boats still change hands annually. For a growing slice of those 900,000 sellers, the exit is not selling at a loss and walking away from boating entirely. It is selling the boat, eating the loss once, and joining a club instead, so they never have to make this exact mistake again. And it isn't just Freedom Boat Club. Carefree Boat Club runs the same model across dozens of locations, often with reciprocal access so a member visiting another city can still get on the water there. Its marketing is built almost entirely around this exact comparison, ownership costs versus membership costs, side by side in dollar figures. When 2 of the largest operators in an industry are both growing by telling people the same blunt message, you don't own this, you rent the experience. That's not a sales gimmick anymore. That's a business model that has found a real gap in the market and is pouring members into it. Here's the part that should really change how you see this. The industry isn't fighting this trend. Brunswick, the same corporation behind Mercury Outboards, Boston Whaler, and Sea Ray, and by most measures, the largest recreational boat manufacturer in the world, is the one that bought Freedom Boat Club and has been pouring resources into its expansion ever since. They looked at the math, 12 to 14 days a year, 20 to 30% gone in year one, and decided the smarter long-term business wasn't selling one more individual boat to one more individual owner. It was selling access over and over to a fleet that gets used constantly instead of an asset that mostly sits still. So next time you're at a marina and you see a boat with a club logo on the side, headed out for the third time that week while 3 private boats nearby haven't moved in a month, you're not looking at someone who couldn't afford to own. You're looking at someone who ran the actual numbers. The 12 days, the 30%, the maintenance, the insurance, all of it, and decided the smartest boat to own is the one you don't have to. Do you think you would ever make that switch yourself? Or does owning still feel worth it to you? Tell me where you land in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.